Loneliness is a strange feeling, but it's been familiar to me. Especially when I was up in Orlando for the first 2 years of community college, I was lost in the adult world that I knew nothing about, and this would be my first time like experiencing, being by myself, being an adult, and sort of being on my own, being away from home. It was all new to me. Realistically, I only had my childhood friend over there in Orlando with me, but we lived in separate places, and oftentimes our schedules just conflicted. We rarely had found time to really hang out with each other. I've met dozens of different people when I was up there. It was very hard for me to connect with any of them, though. I felt like interacting with people felt a lot different than really connecting with them. Like I could have a conversation with them, but the conversation really didn't mean anything, right? Like it just didn't lead anywhere, didn't lead to a deeper conversation or anything like that. It made me feel really lonely because I was just talking to people and not really making friends, right? And there'd just be acquaintances that I would be talking to, not necessarily people that I'd like to get close to or anything like that. Just people that I'd see in my day to day life that I just talk to every now and so often. But I just never really found any sort of connection with them, which it hurt. It sucked. No, I'd consider myself an ambivert, right? I'm not really necessarily an introvert or extrovert. I don't like being alone by myself all the time, and I don't like being out there constantly interacting with people all the time. I like to find like a nice medium, and I'm not terrified of social interaction, so it definitely leans me more towards the extrovert side of things. For those 2 years when I tried to desperately talk to people, I was shy. I didn't know how to really start off a conversation. Usually, I'd had people approach me and talk to me, but going out there and trying to talk to people was weird to me. It was new to me, especially as an adult, right? I didn't want to come off as like a weirdo or anything, but it was just like I wanted to talk to him, just to talk to him. I didn't really need like a. I was just trying to find like a reason, but I didn't really need one. But something I kind of realized along the way in life, being in those 2 years there, and then now currently in this present time, those people were probably thinking the same thing I was, 100%. There's no doubt that they've probably saw me in class, or outside of the campus, and were just like, "Oh, I know that guy. I want to talk to him, but I don't want to seem weird. I don't want to seem like, I'm stalking this dude or whatever." But the same experience that I probably felt there in my first 2 years being in college was no different than what that person might have felt at that moment. And let's face it, there's no handbook on how to talk to someone your age. It's a lot of trial and error. The struggle I honestly faced when I was up there was that all my friends back home were busy. They just couldn't call sometimes. I couldn't really tell them all the time about how my day was, and we really found time to really play games. Everyone was kind of doing their own thing. I can recall countless times where I would call my friends from back home to talk or play games, but it would just go to voicemail. They'd be busy with work or school or something else. But that would lead to me sitting up, staring at my ceiling in my room, just wondering, what am I gonna do? I need to start making friends. I need to start talking to people. And as time passed, I started to feel this crippling loneliness and being in a place where I don't belong. It just kind of felt desolate, right? There's plenty of people there, sure, but it's just hard to interact, to even start, to even make the first move. Um, which is kind of ironic. I'm in a college surrounded by hundreds of people my age, yet I feel alone. I don't feel connected. Um, there are many solutions. You can't see me, but I'm air quoting right now. That I tried when I was over there in Orlando, and one of them was walking around a mall. I've done this a bunch of times. It never worked. I would just leave after school and I just go straight to a mall. Whether it's a popular mall, a niche mall, I just went to it just to see if just maybe, ever so maybe, I could just talk to someone my age there, and maybe strike up a conversation of what they're getting at the store or something like that. And I'd go around hoping someone would come up to me instead, right? Starting that conversation. But I just don't think it was gonna happen. I didn't think it was. and it never did. Um, Especially if it was by myself. It's just really odd. I looked really odd in that scenario. I don't doubt that, but one day I was waiting outside my trick class, and the professor hadn't arrived yet, and there was me and another student waiting outside. And he approached me and he asked me about the tattoo I had on my arm, which was Akhorn, right? The shattered sword that Talion uses as a knife in the Shadow of Mordor games. But it turns out the guy was a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. We had a good talk about it that switched eventually to D&D, which then switched into Magic the Gathering. And what took 2 years to find came to me out of nowhere on a random Monday, and it was jarring, to say the least. It was just confused. I was just like, dude, I've put in so much effort into trying to interact with people, trying to have a conversation like this, and then it dawned upon me that I was doing the whole thing wrong, right? I wasn't really trying, I was just expecting, right? Someone to talk to me and, have that conversation with me, never really thinking that maybe that experience was the same experience that guy had, right? Where he was just confused and scared, and he was also doing his adult life and not really knowing how to interact with people that were also going through the same thing. Maybe he thought, hey, it's scary to talk to people, but I'm going to try it anyway, right? And kind of realizing that, kind of clicking that together from the interaction, I started to talk to more people. I talked to them, and the conversation felt easier, right? It felt better to converse, and it didn't feel like I was just talking about nothing, right? It actually connected with people. And you mix in humor with it, it feels like these conversations were authentic. I think it's possible to feel lonely no matter how hard you try, right? But I believe that you're always going to find a good interaction. You're always going to find good people to connect with if you just give it a try. Be the first to approach someone. Be the first to speak up in class. Be the first to try to connect with someone. I think it's important that we all get over this fear of looking stupid or boring or weird to another person. Who cares? I think it holds more importance to be who you are, to be your authentic self, and show that off to the world. So talk to people. If it's your neighbor, family, friend, stranger, co-worker, classmate, doesn't matter. Just keep interacting with people, keep connecting with them. I think it's important that we do that. It reminds us that we're human, and I think that's something beautiful that we could all see.